DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves anyone out there, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together into one bundle package mindset philosophy. There's a book on the subject. This masterclass is everyday show that is known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is do not marry your excuses. It's all about being very careful with the excuses that you allow yourself to use, the excuses that you give yourself. Of course, the excuses that you give to other people. This is not really about other people, though. It's about the way that you're communicating with yourself and what you are accepting from yourself and what you are allowing from yourself and what kind of explanations you are giving yourself for situations in your own life. Now, I've talked about excuses in many episodes of this show. I'll refer you to a few here while we're in the introduction here. Masterclass number 1437. How to turn your excuses into reasons. Masterclass number 41, 3 steps for eliminating excuses forever. Masterclass number 31, bullshit excuses that losers use. And masterclass number 279, youth is not an excuse. Now, I'll tell you a quick story. What actually made me think of this subject here is that there's some software that I use. I'm a subscriber to some software and I use the software all the time. But in early March, around the time when the COVID-19, so it was more mid to late March rather, when the COVID-19 situation started to hit all over the world, this software just started working slowly. It wasn't working the way it had been working before. And I reached out to the support desk of the software and I let them know, like, hey, your software is not working the way that I expected to work given how much I'm paying to be using your service. And they replied and said, well, Dre, we're sorry, but since the COVID-19 thing happened, we've had a surge in users. A lot more people are using our service. A lot more is being demanded of us in the way that our services, we have to deliver to a lot more people and deliver a lot more to them since more people are using our service since the COVID-19 thing happened. And I didn't press them on it. I understood. Nobody saw this. Most people didn't see this coming, didn't know what kind of impact it was going to have. So I let it go. A couple months go by and I'm using this software again. Well, I was using it all the way through, but I'm using the software again and we're in May at this point and it's still going slow. I'm still having the same problems. I reach out to them, the support desk, and I let them know, hey, your software is not working the way that I would expect your software to work. And a different person, different support staff person replied to me this time, but even though it was a different person replying, they had the exact same excuse that they had before, that we had a whole lot of people start using it when the COVID-19 thing happened. And I said, yo, the COVID-19 thing happened 2 months ago. Y'all had at least 60 days to step your game up, and being that you're charging for your software, you can't still have the same excuse 2 months later. That's completely unacceptable. And how the rest of that conversation goes is TBD, to be continued, to be determined rather. But the whole point that the whole reason I'm giving you that story here is to emphasize the point that we're going to be talking about here today. It was just not marrying your excuses, meaning if you have an excuse for a certain situation, something's not working the way that you expected it to work, you shouldn't still have that same excuse months later, years later, or after many attempts at fixing the situation later. That's what we're talking about here today. And as we get into the points, you'll have a better understanding, I promise you. Point number 1, today's topic again is do not marry your excuses. Number 1, the more you use a certain excuse, the more that excuse becomes part of you. In other words, it stops being an excuse and it just becomes part of the package that comes with you as a person. It just becomes part of your talent stack, if you will, that we talked about not too long ago, just yesterday. The more you do anything in life, the fact is, the more you get used to it. You do anything enough and it eventually becomes your habit. So if your excuse is, well, this person is getting in my way, or these people don't believe in me, or nobody's helping me out, or I was tired. If you use that excuse over and over again, you keep saying, no, I haven't achieved this because nobody's helping me out. And then next time something happens, nobody's helping me out. Next time nobody's helping me out. Then eventually it's not an excuse anymore. That's just your normal MO. That's your way of operating, is that nobody's helping me out. And that's the reason why I'm not where I want to be. And that is not an excuse anymore. An excuse is something that you use, hopefully temporarily, to explain away a situation. But if you keep using the same one over and over again, it's not an excuse, it's just you. All right, this is just who this person is. They believe nobody's helping them out, so they're always gonna have that excuse. Or they're always tired, so they're always gonna have that excuse. Or they don't have any money, they never have any money, so that's always their excuse. The more often you use an excuse, the more comfortable you become with that excuse. It becomes a habit. What is a habit? It is an unconscious and continuous act that you keep, either something that you're thinking or something that you're doing. But you're doing it unconsciously, and it happens over and over again. It happens consistently. That's what habits are. I wrote a whole section in my book, Work on Your Game, that's all about looking at your habits as if they're your employees, because your habits are your employees. They are working for you. Most of the things that we do in life are habitual. We're not thinking about them. We don't have to remind ourselves to do them. We just do them habitually. That is in terms of the way that we speak, the way that we think, and in our behavior. So, since the majority of the actions that we take and thoughts that we have and words that we use are based on habits, your habits are literally creating the life that you have right now. So if you want to change your life, all you would need to do is first examine, and then secondly, alter as needed whatever habits you identify yourself as having, especially the ones that are not serving you, because they're your employees. They are literally the ones working for you. So any one of them that you don't like, you need to get rid of them, not now, but right now. You need to get rid of them immediately. They need to be fired now. Go away now, call security, collect their ID card and your keys, change all the passwords, and kick them out of the building, never to return. This is the way you got to treat your habit. So if you have a habit of making an excuse, or making excuses, period, or the habit of making a certain excuse and using a certain excuse over and over and over again, eventually it becomes so normal for you to make that excuse that people stop asking you for why you're not doing something, or why you are a certain way, or why things are set up in a certain format in your life, and it just becomes a normal way that you operate. This is just a normal way that you live. Nobody's wondering why it's like that anymore. People just say this is just who this person is, and they're gonna stop even hoping that you change. They're gonna stop hoping that you can get better and just say this is just who this individual is. They're not going anywhere else. This is just part of the stack. This is part of their talent stack, if you want to call this a talent. We can call this an anti-talent. The more you do anything, the more you get used to it. It becomes a habit, and something's a habit long enough, you don't even notice it as a habit. It is just who you are as a person. You ever heard somebody say that? It's just who I am. When somebody says it's just who I am, what they're actually telling you is this is a habit that I have done so many times and for so long, and I am so emotionally invested in this habit that I am not interested in the fact that I could possibly change it and I could do anything different. I am married to it. I am going to stay with it forever. It's just who I am. That's what somebody's saying. Whenever you use that phrase, it's just who I am, you are saying this is a habit of mine that I am sticking to. I'm married to it. It's holy matrimony forever. Point number 2. Until death do us part. Point number 2, today's topic is do not marry your excuses. Point number 2 is that we all have excuses. Every one of us has excuses. At least every now and then. Even the most disciplined of us make excuses at least every now and then. And it's not that we always announce our excuses. Sometimes we have excuses that we keep in our minds internally. Let me stay in bed for another 5 minutes. I just want to get a little bit more sleep. And then you end up not getting things done when and where they're supposed to get done. And it becomes your excuse. Well, I just need to stay in bed a few more minutes or whatever. I mean, you think about your own excuses. I don't need to give you any examples. You know the excuses that you use on a regular basis. You may not be as aware of them as you could be because you don't think of them as excuses, but they are excuses. And you know when you're making an excuse, again, if you're self-aware enough to identify them. The thing is, all you need to do is change the way that you're looking at these excuses. I'm not telling you to eliminate them because that's gonna be pretty hard for you to completely eliminate excuses and never have one, even though there's a section in my book that says eliminate excuses and explanations forever. The way that you eliminate them is when you identify that you are making one, again, in your own mind. I'm not talking about the ones that you tell to other people or announce to the public, but any excuse that you make in your own mind, just flip around what you're seeing. Ask yourself a different question and you can change that whole situation. You can start seeing your excuses as challenges because that's all they are. Anytime you make an excuse, you can see it as a challenge to your creativity and to your problem-solving muscle. Think about it. If you're an athlete, for example, and you don't play well in a game because your knee was hurting, that could be an excuse because, as we say in the sports world, if you suit up, if you get on the court or in the pool or on the field or in the car or whatever sport you play, then that means you're healthy. Now, you can't participate in the game or in the match, not play well, and then say, well, I didn't play well because I wasn't healthy or because I was injured. Well, if you were too injured to perform, you should have never played in the first place. So if you decide to suit up and show up, that means you are saying, that is your implicit communication that you're healthy enough to compete and help your team win. If you don't do that, you can't use the excuse that you were injured, because that means you shouldn't have been playing in the first place. So therefore, if you had a bad game and you know in your mind it's because your knee is hurting, don't use that as the excuse and say, well, I just had a bad game because my knee hurts. How about you turn that around and challenge yourself and ask yourself this question: how can I compensate for the fact that my knee is not 100% and adjust my game so that I can still be an asset to my team and help us win? Maybe you can challenge yourself by asking, hey, should I sit out a game or two so I can get back healthy so that I can actually perform and help the team, because I can't help the team in this state? Maybe you could ask yourself, how about I go see the team physician or go see a doctor, because maybe I might need surgery on this knee because it's really bothering me. So an excuse is you saying, this is what I want. This is the outcome that I want to have, but I don't have that outcome, and here is the reason. I want to achieve this. I have not achieved it, and here's the reason that I'm giving myself, or the reason that you're giving the world, or the reason that you're giving your coach or your boss or your family or to the public. That's what an excuse is, but that doesn't fulfill anybody. I mean, you don't feel fulfilled when you use an excuse. If you had a bad game as an athlete and it's because your knee was hurting, does it make you feel better? Probably not. It may alleviate a little bit of the pain because you're making up a story in your own mind. We call this rationalizing. You're making up a story in your own mind that makes you okay with the fact that you didn't perform, but it doesn't fulfill you. It may make the pain go away, so that'll get you from negative to neutral, but it's not taking you into where you feel fulfilled, like, man, I'm happy about this. So how about you challenge yourself and ask yourself some different questions that can help you turn this whole situation around? That's what we're going to talk about in a moment. So challenge yourself to figure a way around any obstacle that you face. Anytime you're giving yourself an excuse, that means you're facing an obstacle, but instead of challenging yourself to face it, you have decided to just let that obstacle be, not challenge it at all, and then just come up with a story that makes you okay with the fact that an obstacle stopped you from getting to your desired outcome. Is that really what you want? I'm gonna let you think on that for a minute as you move on to point number 3. Today's topic is do not marry your excuses. Third point, adopt the open-ended questions that provoke thinking. All right, this is all you need to do. If you want to learn how to challenge yourself the next time that you have an excuse in your mind, and you feel an excuse brewing in your mind, and you feel like the seeds of an excuse have been planted in your mind, instead of allowing that excuse to slow you down, instead of allowing that obstacle to leave you in an unfulfilled state, how about you do something different? Here's what you would do different, and just ask yourself some questions that will provoke your thinking, that employs the most powerful employee that you will ever have on your staff, which is known as your brain, by asking it some questions that will open it up to thinking. All right, these are what we call open-ended questions. They usually begin with the words who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. These kind of questions, usually open-ended questions, start with these. There are some closed questions that can start with these same words, but usually when questions are starting with these, you get some open-ended questions. Now, when you apply these open-ended questions that provoke thinking, then your brain will be employed. It was already employed, but your brain will be activated. It will be given an assignment to carry out. And understand that your brain doesn't need break time. Your brain doesn't need a vacation. Your brain does not need it does need sleep, and you sleep already every single day. So your brain can be awake anytime that you're awake. It's the best assistant you'll ever have, because it will never leave your side. It will always be there, ready to work, as long as you are calling on it and as long as you are actually giving it assignments. You stop giving your brain assignments, it's going to go soft. It will atrophy. You won't have the same skill that you had before. So keep your brain working. When it's awake, it's working and it's ready. It is ready for a job. Give it a job. All right. You don't want to have an idle employee doing nothing, because you're paying them. All right. You're paying with your oxygen, with your blood, with your energy. You're paying your brain, so you might as well put it to work and let it do its job. So if you're an athlete and you've been having bad games, let's say because you think all your teammates are trash, you're the only you're the only player on the team who's actually good. You're the only one who takes it serious, and that's your excuse for why the team keeps losing. How about you ask yourself some open-ended questions that will help you change things around? First question: who do I need to be as a person, as an athlete, as a teammate to my teammates, to possibly inspire them or set an example for them or lead them to start being a little bit more serious about what we're doing here so we can win some games? That is an open-ended question. Who do I need to be as a person? And you're going to fill that in with answers, and your brain is smart enough to start coming up with some if you demand answers to the question. How about another one? What can I do to set a better example for my teammates and position my teammates so that they can only do what they do well, which will allow me to do what I do best, set them up to not make mistakes, and I'm not asking more of them than what they're capable of, and then we can actually start winning. That is an open-ended question. What can I do is an open-ended question. Third one, when. Now this one may be a little bit harder because usually when is asking for a time or a time frame, which is more of a closed question. So you got to be careful with when. So let's just say if we were using when anyway, when can I speak to this teammate, and this teammate to try to get a better feel for how they're feeling internally and figure out why they are the kind of player that they are, why they're not performing, why they're not showing up in practice, why they're not working hard in the games, why they quit so easily, so that I can better connect with them. Maybe I shouldn't talk to them as a group. Maybe I should talk to them one-on-one. When can I find time to do that? How about where? Where do I need to go? Where do I need to look? Where should I be focusing my attention so that I can do what's best to lead this team and hopefully inspire some of my teammates to do better? How? How is a great open-ended question. How will I be able to do this? How can I make this happen? How can I adjust myself? How can I perform at a higher level? How can I make my teammates take practice seriously? How can I explain to my coach that I need him to coach these guys harder because they're obviously not playing that hard based on the way he's coaching right now? How is a great open-ended question because it always basically ends up open-ended question. How always usually ends up in a question that's going to challenge somebody to think, challenge somebody to expound on their answer. The answer is usually going to be longer than the question. Who is also another one. The quality of the questions, ladies and gentlemen, determines the quality of the answers. I talked about this in my book, Ask Yourself a Better Question, which you can get at workonmygame.com/ask, A-S-K. If you ask better questions, you will get better answers. If you don't believe that the quality of the questions determines the quality of the answers, go to a court of law or go watch a law drama and watch how the lawyers, when they're asking the person on the stand questions, how the way that they ask their questions pretty much determines how the conversation goes. The person asking the questions determines the conversation. They control the conversation, ladies and gentlemen. So if you want to control a conversation, be the person asking the questions, not the person answering the questions. When you go on somebody else's show, usually they're the one asking the question, you're the one answering it. They're controlling the conversation, which makes sense because of their show, right? If you get questioned by the police, they're asking the questions, you're answering the questions, which makes sense. Why? Because they're the ones who have power in that situation. If you go to court and you're on the stand, the lawyer asks the questions, you answer the questions, they're in a position of power. The quality of the questions determines the quality of the answers. So the right open-ended question will spark the right thought in your mind, and being that you are already an intelligent individual because you are listening to audio shows, and studies show that the people who listen to audio shows are on average more intelligent than the people who do not. So knowing that you're an intelligent individual, if you just challenge your mind to think, you will come up with some ideas that you otherwise would not have come up with. Why not do that? Why not put your brain to work? Again, your brain does not need as much time off as you may have been giving it. All right, it will work if you give it a job, but you have to give it a job. It won't come up with one on its own. Let's recap today's class, which is do not marry your excuses. See masterclass number 1437, 279, 41, and 31 on the topic of excuses. I told you the story. A software company I reached out to, I said, your service is going slow. They said, well, we had this pandemic happen. That's why we're slow. 2 months later, they still had the same problem and the same excuse. That is unacceptable. Point number one. The more you use a certain excuse, the more it becomes part of you. It's no longer an excuse. It's just part of who you are. It's part of your talent stack, part of your package. It's just who you are as a person. The more you do anything, the more habitual it becomes, and to the point that it's not even a habit anymore. It's just your normal you. When you say this is just who I am, all you're saying is I've adopted these habits and I refuse to change them. Point number two, we all have excuses every now and then. Internal excuses, if not external excuses. Start seeing excuses as challenges to your creativity and challenges to your problem-solving muscle. If you don't play well in a game because your knee hurts, you can see that as an excuse, or you can challenge yourself. How can I compensate for this? Should I sit out some games? Maybe I need some surgery. Anytime you use an excuse, you are saying that you have something in your life that you don't want, but you are creating a reason for it that rationalizes the situation and allows you to be okay with it. How about instead of allowing yourself to remain unfulfilled with an excuse, you challenge yourself to figure a way around an obstacle instead of letting yourself off the hook? Point number three, adopt open-ended questions that will provoke thinking, such as questions that begin with the words who, what, when, where, why, and how. The quality of the questions, ladies and gentlemen, determines the quality of the answers. The right open-ended question will spark the right thought in an intelligent individual. And I know you're intelligent because you're listening to this show right now. Studies have shown this is scientific, it's proven. All you got to do is ask yourself the right questions. You will get the right answers. Don't allow excuses. If you're married to excuses, call your lawyer, get a divorce ASAP. Work on your game. Dre all day.